homework that we're evaluating today, which is all your thoughts, we're actually going to take a look at because it has a lot to do with this. But let me tell you that in yoga there are 4 paths that people usually take. There is the karma yoga, which is the active path of action through selfless service. Through selfless service. So does anybody know Mother Teresa?
Yes.
Mother Teresa took this path of karma yoga because she did selfless service all the time. See, actions are very much what our yoga is because it's a way of life. Remember? It's a journey, a way of life. So Mother Teresa is an example of karma yoga. When you give unselfishly, expecting absolutely nothing in return. Right? The second path is Jnana Yoga, which is the philosophical path that deals with the philosophy and the intellect. That's where we introduce the laws of the universe. That's what I'm giving you right here at the beginning. So even though you think you're just taking notes, you're actually doing yoga. You're doing Jnana Yoga because you're learning about the philosophy and how it affects the intellect and how it affects your life. Okay? The third path is the Bhakti Yoga, which is the devotional path. I actually live the Bhakti Yoga path. There is not one day that goes by that I am not in meditation or in prayer. I pray every day, I meditate every day, and I chant every day. Come rain or come shine, I always begin my day that way. And if I cannot, then I end my day that way. Okay? But that's me. That's my devotion. And it's a devotional path that will keep it will move me out of my own way. Okay? And then there is the scientific path that we're all going to study through the 8 steps. So you'll learn all of the 8 steps. And we now begin to study the first 2 steps. So the first step, right? The first 2 steps are very, very important. Very, very important. They're called the yamas. Now the yamas deal with and talk about the restraints or the abstentions that we should always have in our life, okay? Those are the outward motivations and actions and the attitudes that we have toward people and things. This is where you need to become aware that how you think affects what you have in your life, okay? And whether you choose to acknowledge it or not, or accept it or not, it is truth. It just is. And yamas mean discipline or restraint from a negative action or behavior. When you are practicing your yama, you are restraining from a negative behavior. Okay, that's really important. So the first yama is ahimsa. Ahimsa means when you practice non-violence, non-meanness, non-negativity, right? So you must practice the kindness and consideration and thoughtfulness to all living beings. And yes, there are times when that does mean that you have to take action and take a life, let's say, of a pet, right? If it gets to the point where they're suffering so much, you have to make a decision whether or not to put them down, right? And the most unselfish thing you can do is to make that decision sometimes. It is the most hardest decision. Same thing with somebody who's on life support system, right? But we're always taking into consideration what is best for them, not us. Too often in our lifetime, we make decisions based on our needs and wants and desires, instead of taking into consideration the needs, wants, and desires of somebody else. So when you follow the path of the yamas, when you follow Ahimsa, you realize that you must always be thinking of the other person and how your attitudes and your thoughts become attitudes. Right? And if that other person happens to be yourself, you have to take a look at that, because we beat ourselves up all the time. All the time. And you count in here. You count in Ahimsa. So when you talk to yourself, when you drop the milk or do something, when you sit there and go, "Ay, pensaba," right? You know that you're talking to yourself and you are acting with meanness to yourself. Because if you were to call somebody else that name, wouldn't they say to you, "You're mean"? Yeah. So you're acting. So Ahimsa means taking yourself as well into consideration. So you must always practice Ahimsa, non-violence, always. And what you're going to find is that we go through the yamas, and you cannot practice one yama without practicing all of the yamas, you're going to find out. Because they all build upon each other, right? And the next time we meet, we'll see the second one. You'll see what I mean. But non-violence. Non-violence means you absolutely do not hit somebody. You absolutely do not hit your dog. You absolutely do not hit your cat. You absolutely non-violence, right? Non-violence. So often I've seen little kids and they think it's funny when they tie a string to a cat's tail and then they wind it up. How many of us have known somebody that does that, right? That is not Ahimsa, right? That is not Ahimsa. And so when we practice Ahimsa, we live by the laws of yoga. We live the truth. Do not practice violence toward anybody, even yourself. And that could mean a negative thought, right? And so what we're going to take a look at right now is I want you to see, and I'm going to ask every one of you, because I asked you to write a resume, what kind of a thinker are you? Because we're going to take that negative thought and we're going to create affirmations from that. So open up your thought, open up your book. Do we have any questions on what Ahimsa means? Any questions, comments? Does everybody understand what they can do in their life to practice Ahimsa? Yes? Girls, that means when your mother asks you to wash the dishes, you don't go like this. Okay. Right? Or, ya lo hice, and they're sitting right there. Right? Okay, so all of that has to do with how you practice your life. Because that which you dish out, you will receive back tenfold. Let me repeat that. That which you dish out, you will receive tenfold back. Whether you dish it out in words, whether you dish it out in thoughts, or whether you dish it out in actions, you will receive it back tenfold. So you always must be mindful of how you act, react, and feel and think. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and you can